President Aquino rejected the resignation of Energy Secretary Jericho Petilla. Immediately after his meeting with the President, Secretary Petilla met with the stakeholders in the power industry to discuss Meralco's power rate hike stopped by a TRO by the Supreme Court. Was it a good move for our electricity consumers? What was the result of that meeting? And joining us tonight via phone patch after a very hectic schedule, we have Secretary Petilla. Good evening, sir, and welcome to NewsLife.
Good evening, and to all the listeners.
Sir, what was your reaction upon the statement of the President that he's not accepting your resignation?
Actually, I was more apprehensive about giving the resignation letter because I was torn between giving a resignation letter and keeping my word, and basically the fact that it's short of abandoning the problems that the energy sector is faced right now. So, in a way, well, put it this way. In a way, it kind of relieved me at the same time. At the same time, there's a whole lot of work ahead that needs to be done. So, I'm glad that that's over. But at the same time, there's still plenty of work to be done in the energy sector.
Sir, do you have a new target in restoring the 100% of electricity in the affected areas of Typhoon Yolanda?
We did compute the targets, and targets vary from town to town because each town have different geographical description of their barangays. Some are far-flung, some are near, some are small, some are big. Okay, so we have to go back to the drawing table and really assess each one. But at this point, give a date because I might be tempted to tempt my job to set my job again. So I'm not going to give a date at this point, but it'll probably take about 3 months for everything to be normalized.
Sir, after your meeting with the President, you met with the different stakeholders in the power industry. What was the agreement reached on how to deal with the Meralco's power rate hike stopped by the TRO?
You see, the problem here is basically Meralco has been stopped from collecting, but the generators have not been stopped by the Supreme Court from collecting from Meralco. So Meralco is saying right now, hey, I have nothing to pay you except for this partial payment because I've been restrained by the Supreme Court from actually collecting any further. So the problem now is how do we deal with the collectibles of the GenCos from Meralco? Some are saying that the generators should be enjoined by the Supreme Court and they should be prevented from collecting. But rather than do that and wait for the thing to happen, the Meralco, Westem or PEMC, and basically the generators, okay, I've asked them to sit down and come up with a formula where we can share the burden at this time. We know that there's a TRO. We also know that the generators or Meralco was asking for was put on hold. That's about 4 pesos and 15 centavos, but at the same time, it can't be zero because there's additional fuel cost involved during the Malampaya shutdown. But since we're respecting the decision of the Supreme Court, then it's basically right now sharing the burden without going to the court, and that's what we've discussed earlier today.
Sir, now what is the impact of the TRO to the consumers? Is it generally good or bad?
Well, first of all, okay, everybody's happy. My wife's happy that she won't have to pay a huge electricity bill this December. But at the same time, it's temporary at this point. And I'd like to remind the public that the Supreme Court is saying the increase should not be implemented because some other people are interpreting this as you don't have to pay your bill on December, and that's not true. You have to pay your bill. It's just that the increase cannot be implemented at this point. So is that good for the consumer? On the short term, it is, because everybody gets to enjoy the rates they've been paying last November. But at the same time, it cannot be prolonged because we want to make sure that there will be disruption in the service that Meralco is giving through its suppliers, which are the GenCos or generation companies. So long-term wise, it might be detrimental. Short-term wise, it's probably going to be benefit the public at this point.
Sir, there are some people crying foul that power producers were in collusion with their schedules of shutdowns for servicing, especially when the Malampaya gas field stopped operations due to maintenance. What's your reaction on this?
It's been scheduled. The planned outages have been scheduled. They've been given permission, and this is in line with the. It's not only the DOE that actually oversees it. They have to submit something to ERC and the National Grid to make sure that there's no major disruption in the supply. So all this planned maintenance have been coordinated with the various agencies, and they're okay. I mean, some are. We've actually told some GenCos not to maintain during the Malampaya shutdown, but some of them we could not prevent simply because they've been deferring their maintenance for a long time already. Like during the election, during summer, we told them do not maintain your plants in summer. So some of them heeded, and then later on we told them you cannot maintain your plants on election day, and so forth. So they can't defer it forever. So there were some that were allowed to actually maintain on the Malampaya shutdown, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. It was actually normal. It's the unplanned outages which actually caused the spike in the WESM rather than the planned outages.
So, sir, are there more safety nets being put in place to avoid the same incidents from happening in the next years? The WESM rules is a continuing, it's a dynamic set of rules. We change and we adapt according to the behavior of the market. So because of what we've seen, the behavior of the market, we're putting in place certain measures where intervention can be put in place right away or can be decided by one agency. So, in fact, tomorrow, we will be, the PEMC board, which actually oversees WESM or the spot market, will have a board meeting to tackle at least two issues which actually put a safeguard for WESM for future trading. Sir, our energy needs as a country continues to increase. Now, how are we using our renewable energy resources to augment the needs when it comes to electricity?
We continue to encourage renewable energy, especially on the hydro. But at the same time, we have to bear in mind that some of the types of renewables are actually expensive. Like, for example, solar, for example, is, although it's grid parity, it's still more expensive than actually using some sorts of other plants like coal plants or Malampaya gas plants for that matter. But we do encourage them, but only up to the extent where it's actually economically feasible for distribution utilities to actually sell them.
And sir, a final word from you, an assurance to our fellow Filipinos that, especially those in the typhoon-affected areas, that soon energy will be restored?
The backbone of energy or power has been restored in all of the towns. And I can say all of the towns with confidence now because we've actually verified all of them. I couldn't say that last December 24 because I was 14 hours and 40 minutes late on my deadline. But up and running now on the towns. Rest assured that if we have power in the town center, everything else will come in a lot easier. In other words, the biggest problem of bringing power from the power plant to the town itself has been settled already. It's been resolved. So now we're simply going to the individual connections and making sure that they're connected without any problems. Like we need to certify that they have good electrical system. That's what we're actually working on right now, rather than the backbone itself, which is actually very challenging.
It is indeed a very big task for you, sir. Thank you very much, Energy Secretary Jericho Petilla, and also for following the President's order to stay on your post. Good luck, sir.
Thank you, and more power.